the Nigerian Electricity Regulatory Commission, NERC, has restructured the transmission company of Nigeria by establishing the Nigerian Independent System Operator of Nigeria Limited. With the establishment of NISO TCN will now transfer its assets and liabilities related to market and systems operation to the new entity. Some of their responsibilities will include managing assets and liabilities related to the market and system operation on behalf of market participants and consumer groups. The new ISO will also negotiate contracts for ancillary services with independent power producers and generation licensees. Joining us via Zoom is the team lead, Platforms Africa, Adeola Yusuf. Good morning. Thank you for joining us on TVC Breakfast.
A beautiful morning to you. My appreciation for being on the program this morning.
Yes, it's great to have you. Now, this matter of unbundling TCN is something that has been on the front burner, especially for experts in this field. And now we are seeing that government is moving in that direction. But one thing that is of major concern to customers and consumers of electricity is efficiency. How will this ensure that they have sufficient power supply and that we wouldn't be having issues of grid collapse moving forward?
Okay, thank you so much for that beautiful question. And I say it's a beautiful question because over the years, the questions that have been on the lips of every Nigerian, anytime that the government comes up with a policy, will be that what's the and then what I call the and then what question. Of course, government has unbundled TCN, and then what will be the question on the lips of Nigerians who are consumers of electricity. And this has been so because of the experience Nigerians have had with electricity supply, the Nigerian electricity supply market. Remember that a few days ago or weeks ago, what has been on the list of everyone has been this issue of the band A, band B, band C, band and so on and so forth. And, you know, a lot of Nigerians have asked, okay, even with this band, would that end electricity quagmire that Nigerian has been, supply quagmire that Nigerians have been experiencing? So that takes us to this same question. But for everyone to understand my line of argument or, claim on this, it's important that we quickly do some kind of a laying foundation for this. Remember that before anyone can switch on, tap his switch in his room and, light his bulb, a lot of things could have happened. And those things, happen under three categories. The first one is the generation. The second one is the transmission. And the third one is the distribution. Those are the three major strata of the Nigerian electricity value chain. Electricity generation, as the name implies, everyone understands, is at the stage where electricity is being generated, produced. We know that in Nigeria, over 70% of generation comes from thermal, which is gas. So that aside, there is a transmission. Immediately those electricity are generated, they are generated in megawatts that are not that can be injurious and even risky to the human consumption. So at that level, they come in gigawatts. So they will be stepped down and transmitted on, through the transmission network. Everyone listening to us or watching us can easily relate with this. Those are the skeletal-looking, power lines spread across the country, about 5,000 kilometers spread of that power line. And that is, the transmission stratum of that value chain. Then it goes to the distribution that a lot of Nigerians, usually relate with. When the electricity is still on that transmission, it is still not consumable, quote unquote, for human. It's still so risky for human. So they have to take it to a place that they call the substation and step it down a bit. From there, they will take it to various transformers in our various communities and step it down again at that level before it now becomes the property of the of the distribution, and it can get into our various homes. Now, the reason I talked about that is that something happened on Friday, November 1st, 2013, and that was the privatization of the electricity, market. So the first stratum of that value chain, which is the generation, was privatized. part of that asset sold to private entities. Then part of, the end of that value chain, which is the distribution, was sold, to private entities as well. So the government left the transmission, which is the middle, the one that is at the middle, still in its armpit. So a lot of time, people have said, those in the generation have said that they have increased generation capacity, they have been able to turn around this and that. And those at the distribution end, at some point, they have called it the weak link between the generation and the transmission. And that has put pressure on the government, because anytime the government is arguing that, those in distribution, the discos are not doing well, what most of them will say is that, okay, the one which is the transmission that is still at the armpit of government, how far about it? And, the government has most times been embarrassed by that kind of question. Even though we know that government is still trying there, but, if you want to put facts and figures on the table, you will see that Nigerian electricity grid, which is still the core of that transmission, left in the armpit of government, has been collapsing almost always. Remember that this year alone, in the first four months of this year, it has collapsed over four times. So now that has put government under pressure to do something about that transmission. So that is why the government has now unbundled the TCN, which is the company seeing, through the transmission network. So unbundling that, company, and with expectation that if that company is unbundled into, different companies, with different responsibilities, they will know those to blame, and they think that will promote efficiency, and that at the level of government. So because I won't want to, be here to give Nigerian, I'm an optimistic Nigerian. I know that, that will help, but I want to let Nigerians know that is not going to help. That's not going to solve, the power challenge that Nigeria has 100%. But that is a very, very good step that government has taken. It's a good step in a very good direction, but it's not going to end everything, because,
right,
like I've said, it is responsibility of everyone in that value chain. And government has, done a part of what is expected to do. Others too should do what they are expected to do.
Absolutely. I love the fact that, in your optimism, you also, put a caveat to it that it's not all, uhuru yet, because, talking about issues and resolving them in the power sector, it's more like the more things change, the more they stay the same, as regards the power sector. But if you look at the latest development by the federal government, which mandated system operators in the Nigerian power industry to supply not more than 6% of total available grid power generated or grid generation per hour to international consumers and to off-takers, rather. In what ways do you think this would definitely benefit us as the consumers?
Okay. One thing we need to understand about, that aspect of conversation is, first of all, most Nigerians that are being denied electricity supply, anytime they hear that, they get somewhat agitated, they get somewhat angry. But fact of the matter is that Nigeria as a country is not, existing in isolation. There are other countries that are existing around Nigeria, that Nigeria benefit from them, and they benefit from Nigeria. And that is what brings in the diplomacy of saying that, okay, there are some countries, based on, signed agreement between Nigeria and them, that Nigeria is supplying or, grid electricity to. And, for Nigerians to, better understand what we are saying, grid electricity is that electricity generated by Nigeria, that Nigeria has that power over. Off-grid electricity are the electricity generated by individuals, like our generators and all that. So the grid electricity, certain percentage of that is being sent, is being sold, to countries around us. And I want to believe that those in government, they have seen a lot, when it comes to, the beneficial relationship that they have with other countries. But Nigerians may get agitated and get, get angry, particularly those that are not, getting that electricity supply. But I know one thing for sure, that, Nigeria is not the only country that is, doing things, for countries around.
But would you blame Nigerians?
To ensure that you get some things.
Sorry to button. Would you blame Nigerians for getting angry?
No. I'll not blame.
Because you know the reason why some of us are angry is the fact that we don't have enough power supply, and then when they don't generate enough, or if they don't make enough from us, they still intend to take the little power generated outside of the country. Talk about Nigeria, Togo, and is it Benin?
Yes. I've said it earlier, but I need to now make it so clear. The reason the government is doing that. Okay, no one can blame anyone if we get agitated or get angry based on that arrangement. And I will blame the government, because one thing is certain: government is not communicating enough. This that TVC, I will at this point give serious kudos to the management of TVC, because government is supposed to even be the one sponsoring this program. Anytime you want to talk about electricity, because government is the major beneficiary of this, because what we are doing is to enlighten Nigerians, to do some kind of explainers to Nigerians. So government is not doing enough of communication. I'll give an example. Niger, for instance, we know that government has an agreement off-grid electricity to Niger. And I know that, there was a time that a certain government wanted to stop this. It was because of, issues around, there is a dam, which water for that dam, is supplied from Niger. And, the dam, happens at the border of Niger. And if Nigeria wants to say that they don't want to supply electricity to the Niger, if Niger, if Niger stops that dam of that electricity, some states in Nigeria are likely to be wiped off by erosion. So, it is a give and take relationship that government, engages in some of those things. But it's not open, it's not clear to a lot of Nigerians. And that is why I said I blame government. You can't blame Nigerians for getting agitated if, they are still, not all of them are on band A, to get 20-hour electricity. And they still hear, it's like rubbing it on their faces. They see here that government is selling this electricity to countries around us. But I want to believe, based on, information, but I'm not speaking for government, that government cannot just wake up and say that it's giving electricity to, people that they don't get, benefit from. For instance, it is not all countries around us that we are supplying electricity to, but we supply the countries supply electricity to some countries based on what we get as a country from those countries. You understand? It's a give and take relationship. But I want to say it with all emphasis and with all sense of humility and responsibility that government is not doing enough of communication when it comes to this. And you can't blame Nigerians.
In fact, government recently, in a report that I saw, is saying that they will restrict power exports to Benin Republic, Niger, Togo, amid the metering gap, and that power delivery to those neighboring countries must not exceed 6% of the total grid electricity at any given time. That is what government is now pushing as it is. But let's get back to this matter of the unbundling of TCN as it is. The ISO and the market operator as well as the system operator, help us understand what their roles would be in specific terms, and where does this leave the TCN itself?
Okay, thank you very much. One thing that is certain about this arrangement is that what government has done is to share responsibilities to different, agencies, so that there will be proper monitoring and proper evaluation. TCN has been the one in charge of, the grid, that just like I said earlier, in terms of the maintenance of those grids. When it comes to, any record of sabotage on those grids, it is still the TCN that is responsible for it. I said it earlier, we have about 5,000 kilometers of, this, transmission lines spread across the country. So government in its wisdom is thinking that, that may be somewhat too much for TCN. And so they will need to unbundle the TCN into smaller, agencies where responsibilities will be able to be shared. Like, for instance, the NISO now is in charge of the grid, maintenance and grid operation. So anytime there's grid collapse, anytime there is, any issues, grid maintenance, or anytime there's any issue around grid, it is going to be TCN that will be responsible. So NISO will be the one responsible for that. And that doesn't mean that TCN is still not in existence. TCN is still, there, to look at other issues around ensuring that, they attract investment into that, spectrum of the value chain. Another thing that I am, optimistic about is that I believe that that may be a stage, for government, a step the government has taken before the next step of, privatizing, the transmission stratum of the electricity value chain. On occasions, I've, had government functionaries speak about the fact that they needed to, sell assets, or privatize, assets in the TC at the transmission level, but that they have learned a lot of lessons in the privatization that happened at the generation and the distribution. So they won't want to fall into same pit, certain things that they didn't do before the privatization at the generation and the distribution, they will need to do. And I want to believe part of those things is to unbundle, unlike selling, the PSCN, all the PSCN assets, at a go like that. Government ought to have unbundled, the TCN into different, some may be in charge of maintenance, some may be in charge of, infrastructure, some may be in charge of, metering, some may be in charge of different things, so that by the time they are, privatizing, selling those assets, they are not selling everything to one. They may sell so that, when responsibilities are shared, you understand that it's going to, aid and promote efficiency and effectiveness.
But would there be sanctions now that we're seemingly going to see some level of transparency in processes with regards to the electricity sector? Are there going to be sanctions? Are you concerned of the processes that will be in place so to ensure that we have some level of sanctioning and sanitizing the system as it is, so we can have efficient delivery of services?
Okay, thank you so much for that question. And it is a question that has, been agitating my mind since this issue, happened, a few hours ago, a few days ago. One thing that we should know is that Nigeria is not only blessed with resources, but also blessed with, human part of that resources value chain. You agree with me that Nigerians have been doing fine when they are on, international mission, when they have traveled abroad, to be medical doctors and all, and this and that. So that will tell you that anytime Nigeria signs an agreement, we usually sign those agreements, at a level that will be beneficial to the country. Let me give you an example. The agreement signed that was sealed on Friday, November the 1st, 2013, which led to the privatization of the PSCN, and change of the name to DISCOs and all that, was signed, until recently, before people believe, we have been saying it, was signed in a way that was so beneficial to Nigeria. You know that an agreement was there in that deal signed that if those DISCOs didn't perform very well, the government will revoke their licenses and pay them back with $1. And they agreed to that deal. So that will tell you that anytime Nigerians are sitting to sign deals on behalf of the country, they don't always just change Nigeria. But the big question now is that we have the law on sanctions. One thing is to do that. One thing is to have that law on sanctions, certain series of sanctions. Another thing is to now have the political will, to now go ahead with those sanctions. You understand? You will not believe that, the distribution companies, majority of them, I'm very, very sure 4 of them now have been taken over based on inefficiency and, inability to discharge based on the agreement signed on the day that I, mentioned earlier. But government is still finding it difficult to revoke their licenses and pay them with $1. So no doubt that we have, sanctions in almost always. I mean, almost all the deals that you have signed with partners. But that is not the end of that story. We may have sanction, as far as that deal is concerned. But another thing that is even more important is execution of those sanctions. Having the political will, motoring the political, stamina, to now execute those sanctions. So we should, as well as talking about sanctions, talk about the ability of those in government to make sure that those things are properly executed.
I wonder what came to your mind, because when you were talking a little earlier, you mentioned the issue of Band A, Band C, etc. And about 2 days ago, the court in Kano State, actually stopped NERC from implementing a tariff hike, especially for Band A, and also, deter them from disconnecting anyone who doesn't comply, to that. So I'm wondering what came to your mind in that regard, because, with the focus shifting towards prioritizing local customers and all of that, how do you think government government plans to ensure that there is equitable and fair electricity distribution across different regions, regional customers nationwide?
Okay, thank you very much. I'll give that an answer to that question straight and simple. Anytime any issue of any issue that has to do with court arises when it has to do with business, I usually desist from talking about it. And the reason is simple. Declaration is not the apex court in the country, so that can still be challenged. That's number one. Then number two, we have seen series of experiences, in the country where certain proclamation or declaration will come from certain courts, particularly from that side that I have mentioned. I don't want to start mentioning, and another one will come from another court of the same level. So I try my best to desist from talking about that. But one thing that I know is that up to this hour that you are talking, you can survey Nigerians. That court has stopped, quote and unquote, is still in existence. People that are using electricity as we speak now, they are still being placed on that new tariff. So what are we now going to start exerting our effort over that, because of the fact that is even not the apex court? So I try so that if one wants to give an example, it won't look like one is just talking down on the courts of the land, which we must under obligation give total respect to. But one thing that I know that everybody listening or watching or listening to us will agree with me is that band, that tariff review, tariff hike is still in existence as we speak. So what are we not talking about?
That's right.
Right. So now that we are looking at the unbundling of the TCN, in terms of, it has been said, like you mentioned earlier, being the weakest link. Moving forward, what do you hope to see beyond the matters of implementation of sanctions as it is? What do you hope to see, and what concerns do you also fear might happen? Because there are those who have said that from the privatization of the sector, not much has been achieved. What would we achieve this time around with this happening?
Oh, thank you so much. I so much love this question. And I've actually been waiting for it. You'll see when I said that it's not yet Uhuru, even with this effort. And that to tell you that I'm alluding to the fact that this is not the end of the story. There are some hurdles that the government needs to cross. Number one, quickly, is the hurdle of the staff of the staff of TCN. They were emptied into the NISO. The government, that is an Achilles heel. We all understand that they are still studying. Those the labor union, the NOI, will still be studying the situation. They are likely to come up with something that may even derail the entire process. So government needs to look so well into that direction to manage them. That's number one. Number two, if this will lead to, privatization of that sector, government needs to be very, very careful. There have been allegations, right, left, and center that, privatization that happened at the, at the distribution end happened to the cronies of those in government. So government needs to come out clean when it comes to this. Government, and the way government can come out clean with this is to, ensure application of the global standards when it comes to transparency and accountability in the whole of the process. That's number 2. Number 3, I have advocated on occasions in this station and so many other stations that I've, featured in. We don't need a national grid as a country. We need, we need super grid. And I'll explain that. A national grid is like a basket where we put all electricity generated. Even if that grid is not collapsing due to technical issues, the enemy of Nigeria can just attack that grid and put the whole of the country in darkness. And it doesn't make any sense to have just one national grid. We need super grid. Why don't we have grid in different zones of the country, geopolitical zones of the country? Let's have 6 grid. So that power coming from the southwest, all we need the southwest will be at this grid in the southwest, southeast, south, and so on, and northeast, and so on and so forth. So if anything happens to the power, the grid at the southwest, it won't affect the grid, it won't affect, the power nationally. So, and it can be isolated, it can be easily isolated and, rehabilitated or fixed as the case may be. So we need super grid. Government should start looking at, unbundling the national grid as well. We shouldn't have just one grid. Let's have different grids, and it's going to help tremendously in ensuring that, the transmission is not the weak link, and it will definitely affect the entire, power value chain. I would say that, for a reason. The generation has been saying for a long time that they have been able to meet, 12,000 megawatt generation capacity. So they have been saying that they can generate 12,000, but we cannot get 12,000, at the distribution because the link, which is the national grid, cannot contain more than 5,000, because most times from experience, anytime they put over 4,000 or 5,000 into that grid, it collapses. So we need proper rehabilitation or even overhaul of that grid and ensuring that we unbundle the grid. If all these are done with strong political will, I think Nigeria will be better for it.
Very quickly, I want you to quickly speak to this. Since 2019, when we started talking about the contract signed between Nigeria and the Simmons AG, it looks like the Siemens contract as of today remains elusive. Where exactly are we, and what's going on? What do you think is going on there?
Okay, thank you so much. That has been one of the efforts by the government to ensure that the power situation in country is okay. But like I tell you earlier, we have little information as regarding that effort. Remember that we have been on that contract for a long time. Government need to speak up. If not for anything, it is going to give hope to Nigerians that there will be the light at the end of the tunnel. So at the tunnel. So government is doing little or near to nothing when it comes to communication in the power sector. And I'm saying that with all sense of humility and responsibility. Government needs to start talking, ensuring support for stations like TVC that are shedding light on issues about electricity all the time. So by that, a lot that are hidden to Nigerians will be so clear to them. So government needs to talk, particularly about this, contact, that deal. On occasion, government has said that is going to help Nigerians tremendous. But how? When? We need to start asking. Nigerians are asking the and then what question about that deal. And government, has that responsibility to answer those questions.
All right, and that's a fine place to leave the conversation. Adeola Yusuf, Team Lead Platforms Africa, thank you for your time on the program.